Carman, CEO and founder of ChiefSight, which empowers mid-market companies and leaders to quickly, accurately, and confidently make data-driven financial decisions powered by AI to optimize overall financial performance. Gregg, welcome to the Goats of Growth.
Thanks for having me, Jay. Happy to be here.
I should say welcome back. Or it's interesting, right? Because when you were on here in November of 2020, believe it or not, I can't believe I've been doing this for almost 4 years.
I know, man. I know.
which is crazy every Monday. It was called Over Quota. And if you folks want to go back and listen, it's November of 2020. And I think the title was something like you have a strong bias for action, I believe. I'm gonna have to look this up when we're here. But I know a bias for action was somehow, here's what it was: what it means to lead with a bias for action. So if you want to go back and listen to that, please go and check it out. It's November 2nd, 2020. But I wanted to have Gregg back on here again for what I just talked about, which was his new company that he founded, which is called ChiefSight. So tell me more about ChiefSight and really the genesis of ChiefSight.
Absolutely, Jay. And again, it's nice to be back. I can't believe it's been almost 4 years. Well, we created ChiefSight to fundamentally change how executives and teams will interact with their business systems using AI. And the real reason behind all this is that every single business, and we're focused on mid-market businesses, but every single business is in a race against time and making better decisions than their competition. Mm. And what we do using the power of AI and exclusive benchmarks is we empower executives and teams to make decisions that are better, make them faster, and make them before their competition can even react. So if you think about the term analysis paralysis, we empower businesses to win while their competitors are in analysis paralysis.
I wish I had something like that, frankly, maybe a year or so ago, maybe even longer ago, when it comes to making decisions, because I feel like, and that's one of the questions I ask a lot, maybe I even asked you back in 2020, which is that how much data does one need to start making decisions with? And then also, how quickly can you iterate and make other decisions based on whether or not that new decision is effective or not, right? And so I guess the question there is, can you give me an example of one decision that a mid-market company might need to make that with ChiefSight AI is just sped up and they have the confidence to actually make that decision?
No, absolutely. I mean, let's say that at the end of the quarter, the executive team is meeting and they're wondering why they're not winning as many deals as they thought they should win. So they're looking at their win rate. They're also wondering if they're efficient in terms of their sales and marketing spend overall. So it's one thing to measure that information. What is our win rate? What are our customer acquisition costs? It's another thing to understand what we call state of the moment, which is when I measure it for myself, how do I compare versus companies like mine? And where are those performance gaps? And what we do is we measure the state of the moment on a daily basis, and we see businesses moving to real-time measurement of state of the moment, where throughout the day in the future, you will understand where your key performance indicators lie, and fundamentally the OKRs that contain those. And you'll be able to understand how you compare versus your competition and where those performance gaps are. So if a business executive team, they're looking at win rate, they're looking at sales and marketing spend, it's the end of the quarter, they can understand state of the moment, they can understand precisely where in their business segmentation they are deficient or they have a performance gap versus competitors. And furthermore, they'll understand on a time continuum, on their entire customer life cycle, when they're having that. So they might be deficient in win rate in Europe because they aren't getting enough leads at the front end of the pipeline. And they might be deficient and have a performance gap in North America with sales and marketing spend because they're spending too much time in the latter stage in contracting in North America versus their competition. So having that intelligence, that's one thing. The second part, though, is being able to understand I have dozens of systems. Dozens. In addition to my ERP and CRM system, on average, most businesses have over 100 other systems. And they're all AI powered. So how much is enough information? The problem is we kind of have too much information and we need help with the pattern recognition. That's where AI comes in. And we're using big innovations in generative AI to help you find the relevant recommendations and ways you can improve those performance gaps so they're no longer performance gaps based on what your systems are already using AI informing you of. And we bring those to your attention. And once you make a decision, then being able to assign those individuals and be your accountability buddy, to actually measure the performance, since we're measuring state of the moment every day, measure that performance over time. So our beta customers, they're seeing improvements in sales metrics. They're seeing improvements in customer risk metrics. They're seeing improvements in overall cost metrics because they're able to understand the state of the moment. They're able to pick and choose those AI-powered recommendations from their existing systems in a smart manner, and they're able to hold their teams accountable when they get a decision. And they're also able to course correct when they make a decision, when they start seeing that their performance is not meeting the goal. And as a little hidden benefit to this, when our clients are setting goals, these goals are not arbitrary. These goals are based on average performance or above average performance of companies like yours. If you're going to set a win rate target in Europe where you were deficient, kind of be a good idea if it was something that others are achieving. If you're going to set a sales and marketing cost spend sort of target, you would want it to be based on the average or above average performance of companies like yours, not just something arbitrary. So those are a couple examples where we've actually seen it, but it's really using the power of AI and exclusive benchmarks so that you can make smart decisions faster.
So let me ask you a couple of follow-up questions. When you say exclusive benchmarks, where are the benchmarks coming from? What's feeding the AI? And obviously it's in real time, right? To your point, right? State of the moment, it's happening right now. So tell me a little bit about that and how that works.
So we have exclusive benchmarks through some partnerships. One with our design partner at Bain & Company Consulting. And these are benchmarks of, and by the way, they're industry specific. These are B2B technology companies that are all between a couple hundred employees and a few thousand employees. This particular benchmark data set is refreshed every month and has been refreshed every month for over 20 years. Now, when we say exclusive, we mean exclusively used in this manner. Those benchmarks that we have a license to, those are used to support other client requirements that Bain & Company provides to its end clients. But it's exclusively used for the purpose of making of decision intelligence for mid-market businesses by ChiefSight.
Right. And ChiefSight I'm assuming there's a dashboard. If I'm an end user, there's a dashboard that shows me state of the moment and other information so that I can make the decisions in real time.
Absolutely. But what's interesting, we interviewed over 250 CEOs, CFOs, chief revenue officers over the last year. And one of their requirements, they shared 6 common requirements for this new category we call decision intelligence. One of them was, in layperson's terms, please not just another dashboard.
Okay.
So it was interesting. It was very clear. They're saying, help us with this. And again, we're using natural language understanding. We're using the power of some generative AI capabilities to make it easier to interact with your systems using AI. Just being able to ask basic questions like the what questions. What are my metrics? The what questions. What metrics am I deficient compared to companies like mine? The why metrics. Why am I deficient? And the how questions. How can I improve those deficient measures? So it's so interesting now. I mean, I think one of the CFOs remarked, and this is anecdotal, I'm not quoting verbatim, and said, please, not another dashboard.
Tell me
I
what
know
the
you need to give us a dashboard, but
right.
please, not another dashboard.
Tell me what the frustration, or I'm not sure if that's the right word, but the sentiment behind that means. And obviously,
Yeah.
obviously, a dashboard is just a visual way to look at something. But what was behind that sentiment there?
Yeah. Well, so I'm interpreting the information. This is how we've interpreted it. It's
Mm-hmm.
the inability for humans to make a reasonable pattern recognition out of it all. So
Mm-hmm.
if you press rewind about 12 years ago, before companies like Palantir, before companies like Snowflake or Databricks were household names in technology, the idea that we had too much data was just starting to take hold. I don't even think we had the term big data yet, if you go back a dozen years.
Mm-hmm.
But we saw the leading indicators. We saw data growing exponentially every 90 days, business data. We said, oh my gosh, there's a market opportunity here. Now, fast forward to today. We have massive data repositories, and there's data out there, meaning business case data, that says the average business has more than 1,000 dashboards today. The average business has more than 119 systems supporting sales, marketing, customer success, finance, HR, and product. Oh my gosh. And by the way, that's growing at more than 40% year over year. So
Wow.
what's happening is it's this explosion of data, and we don't even have the case data on how many AI-powered insights or recommendations are being fired off on average on a daily basis to every business. It's
Mm.
more than the human mind can recognize patterns. That's where AI comes in. Let's
Right.
use the power of
Makes sense.
generative AI to
Tell me more
look for the
about
patterns.
The
The state
Bain
of
and
the
Company
moment helps us
partnership. How
find
did
the
that?
relevance, right? Oh, go ahead, Jay.
Right. Yeah. Sorry. Sorry, audience. There was somehow there was the delay there, and I thought I heard Greg stop talking, and then I talked. So hopefully we can correct that. But
We'll edit it through. But what I was saying is the thinking that now with the power of generative AI, we can use AI to find the patterns, and doing the real time measurement of the state of the moment. The generative AI has the relevance. And then with all of those dozens, 119 other systems that have AI powered recommendations, there's now a repository of recommendations that AI can then take that pattern recognition from the state of the moment and look for the best recommendations to course correct the business to improve overall financial performance. Again, make smarter decisions faster than your competition.
that's right. Yep. Um, the partnership with Bain and Company. Tell me how that came about.
Yeah, well, Bain and Company has a founder studio that they call
Mhm.
Founder Studio. It's a startup studio, and they supported us in the studio. So that partnership came about through there. The idea that there's a data partnership came about through client workshops that Bain conducted with its clients, and it works with the largest businesses in the world. That's not our market. Our market is mid-market companies. And Bain rightly recognized that there's an opportunity to take some of the benchmarking requests that the largest companies in the world were having and bring it downstream to the mid-market. And that's how the partnership bloomed. Because as we were looking to help businesses make better, faster decisions, we realized that the power of benchmarks embedded into the product were invaluable. Now, but again, their partnership is not the only partnership we have. We're developing other partnerships with other benchmarking data sets. We anticipate that some of our partner ecosystems in the private equity markets, they'll want to use their own proprietary benchmarks. So we're building a flexible, robust architecture that can incorporate one or many benchmark data sets in order to help businesses make better, faster decisions.
Got it. Let's switch to go to market for a minute, and just start from the beginning. You mentioned beta customers. Where did those beta customers come from? How did you first engage them, and how much feedback did you have early on to sort of either iterate on the product or iterate on messaging to get going?
So, as I mentioned, we've interviewed more than 250 senior executives and counting. And it's all through demand generation outreach. So if you think about the two different marketing approaches we could generate or we could deploy, one is demand generation, proactive outreach, trying to engage the right person in our ICP, trying to engage them in a conversation, whether interview them about their product requirements, their business requirements, or actually engage them in a sales conversation, or thought leadership marketing, where we're building a massive library of content, of credible insights. We're defining the market, we're designing the market, and we are becoming the ubiquitous thought leader in the market. So the answer to your question is these initial beta customers were through demand generation. But simultaneous to that, we are deploying a thought leadership marketing strategy, which will become our only marketing strategy within the next 6 to 9 months. We have to do both in parallel because thought leadership takes a little bit of time to build up that wedge of sufficient content to build credibility and design and define the market. Mm-hmm. But the answer to your question is these initial beta customers were through demand generation. I do believe our latter beta customers over the next 6 months will come through thought leadership marketing, where they're coming to us versus us going to them.
When you say demand generation, talk to me about that. Which channels are you using or have you used, and which ones were or have been the most effective?
Right now, it's just email. Quite honestly, Jay, I'm not satisfied with it. I believe that there's sufficient evidence that there's a changing set of channels and a changing set of media that we need to use in order to find our ideal clients where they're at. Mm-hmm. And the channel being email is not the optimal channel. It's just not. Now, we're in the midst of trying to figure out what that optimal channel is or channels are for our ideal client. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be different for everybody. It's just, I do know based on anecdotal information that it can't be just email. Can't.
And so I love geeking out over this micro stuff because we're all trying to figure it out, right? Like you're figuring it out. I'm trying to figure it out. A lot of people who listen to this are trying to figure it out. Everybody I talk to every day is trying to figure it out. So have you found any, well, actually, let me back up for a second. The ICP, right? I'm talking about the persona, not necessarily the companies, but the persona. Mm-hmm. Who is that? Who are you, if you're reaching out through email to begin with, who is it that is the person or people that you feel like you're going to have a better success rate with?
For us, it's the chief financial officer. And the two primary influencers are the chief executive officer and the chief revenue officer. But the chief financial officer is the individual. She is the one in the organization who is waking up in the middle of the night saying, I don't know how my teams are going to pull this off. I don't know how everybody in the organization is going to dovetail this. And we agreed to do something a month ago. I don't even know the status of that thing we agreed to. So that's the take that's the persona that is our ultimate buyer. She's most seriously influenced by the CEO and the CRO on the same topic.
Got it. Okay. And then even to go a little bit more micro, are you finding that the ones that have worked, right, the messaging that has worked, either have they come through, has it been LinkedIn messaging? Has it been traditional email? Are they shorter? Are they longer? Like, what are some of the things that have been working for you when you have won these? Because, listen, to start a new entity, to start a new business, to evangelize this whole category, I guess, if you will, and then to get someone to respond to a message and then to get them as beta customers is very, it's commendable to begin with. And it's a Herculean task at best, right? Like, so I'm trying to learn, and I would love to teach other people as well, as far as like what has worked for you at a micro level in terms of the kind of messaging that's.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I'll answer the question, but then I'm going to change the frame of the question and answer a different one. Okay, so we're iterating every week. We're looking at we're doing a lot of A/B testing. We're iterating which message is resonating with the best open rates, the best response rates, the best conversion rates. And then we're trying to double down on that in future emails. So imagine that any campaign, we have a 7-step process, meaning there's 7 emails over a 4-week period that goes out. We're expecting most of our conversions in the 5th and 6th step, just the way what the data shows. And we're looking for that open and that response rate in an A/B test all the way throughout, and we're tweaking the language in future emails as a result.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we're doing it today. But
Mm-hmm.
now let me reframe the question.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we know we need to go?
Mm-hmm.
We need to do an everything channel strategy. Okay? And that everything channel strategy is first an upstream discovery. Think of this as like we're drilling for oil. We're going to do a bunch of geological surveys through an everything channel strategy, meaning everything. Facebook, TikTok, X, formerly Twitter, LinkedIn, yada, yada, email, literally everything.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to find out through that upstream discovery, that geological survey, we're going to understand where our personas are at when they're ready to listen.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll know how to reach them. So if we're doing TikTok, if we're doing Instagram, if we're doing Facebook, there's going to be a little more video. LinkedIn posting's a little bit more video. Email, a little bit shorter. Emails more concise. X, a little bit more provocative. News articles, free press mentions. But each one's going to be different. But they're all good. We're looking to find out where's our ideal persona at when they're ready to, have a serious conversation. And then we'll focus in on that channel. But it takes time. It takes time. And I think what everybody needs to do right now is that exploratory geological survey, because I know the answer is not in the future we're going to do all channels with equal weight. I just don't know when yet. And then the other part of this is radically changing, is using generative AI tools to not only write the campaigns, to not only send the campaigns, but to be able to predict when and where channel-wise our personas will be. And the individuals and the businesses that are exploiting those tools today are winning more than the rest of us. Hard stop.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was going to be my next question, given what you were talking about in terms of the omni-channel strategy, is what the tech. Do you have the right tech stack right now?
No.
Okay, you don't. So
no.
Okay, so go ahead.
But one of our advisors, has a publishing business, and that publishing business has been around for 20 years. They've run email campaigns for about 11 years. And they've had a steady conversion rate of about 3 to 3.5% over that 11-year period of email campaigns. Last year, they started testing generative AI solutions embedded within their email campaigns. They saw an immediate improvement to 5 to 8%. And then they invested deep. Their average email conversion today is 10 to 15%. And that's compared to an 11-year average of 3 to 3.5%. So the variance is higher. 10 to 15% is a wide variance, but the number is higher as well. So they're spending less to get to a better result. And businesses that are doing that are winning similarly. And I believe it is an urgent need on all of us. If you're not using AI, if you're not planning to use AI in your outreach and demand generation and thought leadership campaigns, you need to change course right away or find another job.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm curious, what is so that transformation, I guess, if you will, improvement is exponential, right? I mean, to go from 3 to like as much as 8% conversion, what is AI augmenting there? Is it more personalization? Is it more, buyer intent? Really, in other words, they're able to respond when someone is just off of a website. Like what?
It's two things that they attribute it to more than anything.
Yeah.
You call it personalization, but it's relevancy. Their messages are relevant to the reader. And the other one is timing. They're finding them when they're in a better position to consume the information and act on it. So instead of being a generic message, it's relevant and you got me at the right time.
Right. Yep. That makes sense.
And the generative AI tools are finding them in those channels, in those mediums, and they're delivering the relevant message. And that's the power of this. That's the power of this. If I get a note that just got me at the right time when I was looking to buy a car and just got me with the right offer right after I got off of a competitor's website,
right?
You got me. You got me.
So, okay. So given that, and I know I want to, you mentioned thought leadership is the next iteration, so to speak, of demand gen and where you think where you're going and where you want to go. Where is this as a priority as it pertains to getting the right tech stack, given what you just told me? In other words, in order to get and manage the right channels, you need the technology. Is that next? In other words, are you going to make an investment in?
Yeah. I mean, imagine this: for a fraction of the cost of hiring a person, we're going to invest in some specific technology to give our lean team more scale and to be more effective.
Right.
All right. But I really see this, I've been in technology since 1992, been in B2B tech since 94. And I can tell you, we go through these evolutions, but I've never seen an evolution so pervasive as this. And this being the generative AI evolution. I mean, this affects every one of our departments, but it affects our skill set as much as anything. Because as a CEO, I need to know how it works. And I need to know how it can help each one of my teammates. And I need to know what's possible, not just what's like unrealistic, but I would like what's really possible. And that is the thing that I can only go back to 1994 when the browser was launched and Netscape was launched. I mean, that's the only thing that comes close to this, but it doesn't come that close to this. This is significant. And I don't think we've seen anything in the last 4 decades quite as disruptive as that.
Yeah, I've been hearing the same thing, for sure. You're not the only person that's told me that recently, which is exciting. I think it's really exciting. Thought leadership. Tell me, what indicators do you have that that's where you'll win in the long run? And then how do you measure that, right? Because I think a lot of times people have trouble attributing thought leadership to the bottom line, especially if there's a longer tail than obviously a direct email, let's just say, where somebody responds, they say, yes, I'm interested, that type of thing. So tell me.
Well, let's talk about why. If you look over the last 4 decades, from the onset of relational databases in the 80s to the launch of pre-built applications on client-server technology in the 90s, to the launch of cloud-based applications at the turn of the century, all of the winners led through thought leadership marketing. So what the heck is it? They designed the market, they defined the market, and when questions arose of the market and of its efficacy, of its relevancy, they were always mentioned in the same sentence. And the reason why they were is because they designed and defined it, and there was massive amounts of content that they had generated to support those definitions and those designs. And I think of companies like Oracle. I think of companies like SAP. I think of companies like Salesforce and Workday. And more recently in big data, I think of companies like Snowflake and Databricks. They designed and defined it. So now, how do you measure it? How you measure it is you gotta get the word out through real books, through ebooks, through content in all of these channels we referenced to before, through industry partnerships and associations, and when I say industry, I mean like industry analysts like Gartner and Forrester, IDC, and the likes of those. Um, but you measure it first on the amount of content you're producing, the amount of content that's being read, and the volume of your voice across all these channels. So when people are looking up decision intelligence, which is the market we're creating, are they finding and looking up ChiefSight? And we should see that percentage grow from near 0% to a plurality, to a majority over the course of time if we're effectively designing and defining the market.
And
ultimately,
then
the last thing that happens is then we get inbound leads, Jay. We get inbound leads. But the thing is, you build this crescendo then where it's an unstoppable, movable object, an object in motion stays in motion, right? And so it's an immovable object, and then the inbound starts to build critical mass.
Yeah, for sure. I would imagine events would play a role in that too, right? Speaking on stages.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Events like this.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, for sure. What about, okay, so here we are, sort of figuring all this out, right? The right channels, the right technology, the right motions within each channel, frankly, the right technology for the channels, and then also the content, the library of content that you need to produce, right? And we talked about coming on podcasts, going to events. I'm assuming, blog posts, maybe Substack, maybe writing on LinkedIn, as I know you do. How do we go from here to there, right? As you look out, let's say 5 years from now, right? You've defined the market, you've designed and defined the market, if you will, right? Like, what does that look like for ChiefSight? What's your vision for the future there? And
for ChiefSight, that means that on an annual basis of all the decisions that are being made around the world for decision intelligence applications, we are winning 50% of those. The second place finisher is winning 25% of those. And the third place through 50th place are competing for the other 25%. That means in terms of revenue, we're the market leader by 50% or more. That means in terms of market capitalization, we're valued at 4 times more than the second place finisher.
How big is the market? How large have you estimated the opportunity to be?
We've done a bottoms up study. So how much can be charged effectively based on comparable markets? How many available businesses are there? And we're focused on mid-market. Looking at mid-market globally in free public market societies. So, not Russia, not China. And looking at just mid-market businesses in 4 vertical markets. This is a $16 billion market and growing just for the software. So it's a large market. The near-term market, what can we obtain right now? $1 billion plus. And that's in just select geographic markets in one vertical industry. So this is a meaningful market today, and it's growing. Again, what is decision intelligence? This is how all executives and teams will interact with their business systems using AI. And by the way, the market sizing I just shared with you is just for 4 vertical markets, just for mid-market businesses.
Right.
There's demand in enterprise. There's demand in small enterprise. There's demand in government.
One thing you mentioned earlier, like Gartner, Forrester, IDC, those types of things. I just wrote a little square and put Magic Quadrant, right? You want to obviously be a Magic Quadrant leader within that as well. When you talk about the vision and being a market leader, if you will. What about speed at this point, right? In other words, because given what you just said, right, it is a large market opportunity. You mentioned owning 50% of the market. How do you put fuel on this thing, right, and get it going? Because to build up the thought leadership, obviously, is a great way to start, but and maybe even to continue, as you just mentioned with SAP and Oracle and that type of stuff. But at some point, do you need to just light it somehow and be like, because I guess the question I'm asking is, how do you scale content marketing in a way where it's like it's constant and just you're ubiquitous, if you will?
So we believe the best way to scale it is to do it efficiently, meaning frugally, using the power of generative AI. We believe that. We
Mm-hmm.
do. We believe we can get the scale of dozens of employees for less than the cost of one employee using generative AI, specific with this, demand generation, marketing, and education in the marketplace. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But the real answer to your question is, how do you build the business?
Right.
If you look over the last 24 years, there's a long, long, long tail of businesses spending 3 to 4 times their revenue in order to fuel their growth for the future and to be on bended knee every time they have to go raise money. Now, it wasn't always that way. It wasn't always that way. We used to build businesses that could stand on their own, that had sufficient free cash flow, that had sufficient margins in order to fund itself reasonably. So how do we do this? We create a business that can stand on its own, that's efficient with capital, that's on growth for profitable growth, to generate its own free cash flow to support its growth. And when we demonstrate that, then we put fuel on that fire, because that's a real business and it lights up. And furthermore, then we repeat the exercise in each additional vertical market or geographic market we go into, have it stand on its own, generate its own free cash flow and its own margins to support itself, demonstrating it's a real business, and then take off. I do believe that we have been snookered into thinking that you can build a business that cannot support itself, and that demonstrates that it's a real business. I believe we've been snookered into that. I don't think that's not the kind of business we're going to build. And I believe that generative AI gives us the ability to scale it efficiently in areas that have been overspent in the past.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to end the core part of this episode, which is, what you just alluding to there, which is profitable, efficient growth. I feel like when we met 4 years ago, not you specifically, but the world had a completely different view of that,
Yeah.
right? And I think it was, profitability, certainly if you were venture backed anyways, was not necessarily talked about or even cared about in a lot of ways. And I think the model is let's just grow. To your point, we'll raise money when we need to raise money to continue to grow the business, and eventually somebody's going to acquire us, or we'll IPO, and that's how we'll win, right? And it wasn't necessarily thought of. So I like what you're saying there, and also with generative AI and building the technology stack in a way, to your point, where I was at an event recently, Stage 2 Capital event, where they were like, there's a way where we see a way where there's $1 billion company, a one-person $1 billion company, right?
Yeah.
Because of that, because of the proliferation of AI and what you can do with it. So makes all the sense in the world. I love it. Ready for the rapid fire 5? Ask you 5 questions, give me 5 answers, and then
Let's do
find
it.
out how people can reach out to you, and we'll go from there. All right. First question. What motivates you?
What motivates me is teammates, building something special. Doesn't matter if it's kids basketball, which I know you're passionate about, or if it's building a company. I love teams and building something special.
Name a big goal you have right now and when you would like to accomplish it.
I'd like for the company to be profitable within 2 years.
What's your most preferred way to learn new information to stay sharp?
Audiobooks.
Me too. What's your favorite character? Who's your favorite character of all time?
Favorite character?
Yeah.
No, is that like movie character? Is that book character? Is that like a real person, make-believe person?
It's an intentionally loaded question because you can go anywhere with it.
I'm going to say Winston Churchill.
Winston Churchill. Love it. What's your favorite thing to do when you aren't working?
Hang with my kids.
Awesome. Can you think of another question that you would like for me to ask my next guest, who is most likely either a founder, CEO, or a go-to market leader within a tech company? And by the way, it can be Like that question that I just asked, who's your favorite character of all time? That actually came from a past guest, to be honest with you, and I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
add it to the rapid
I
fire
like it.
five. What question would you like for me to ask the next guest?
What's the most memorable moment in your career?
Oh, that's a good one. What's the most memorable moment in your career? Since we have a couple of extra minutes, can I turn that around and ask you how you would answer that question?
Well, I got to tell you, I've got a few, but the one that came to mind first is when I was sending a contract in the last couple hours of a quarter. It was about 24 years ago. And I had to go to the Kinko's across the street, which is now FedEx office, across the street from the client office to fax it to the corporate office. And I realized that the client signed the wrong version. They had a version control. So I jumped over the counter, ripped out the contract from the fax machine, ran across the street only to find out that the procurement officer had left for the day. No way to get him. So then I went to the president of the company and I said, "Hey, Ed, we got a problem and I'll rip this up. You've already signed it, but I'll rip up the wrong one if you'll sign the right one." And he said, "All right, I trust you. I trust you. This is crazy, but I'll trust you." And he signed the right one and I went across the street and faxed the right version. It was
Wow.
definitely not in their best interest to sign the other version. Definitely not. It was not the version they wanted to sign.
Wow. That is
Yeah.
amazing. How much was the contract worth?
I think that one was like $1.5 million plus 20% in maintenance every year. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Wow. I'm glad I asked. That's fantastic. Um,
Yeah.
Here's a question that I have from a guest in the past, because I was looking for the last question that the previous guest asked. I realized that there wasn't one. So I'll just ask one that I know a guest asked many months ago that stuck with me. Not really business related necessarily, but the question is that, what would your walk up music be if you were like how they have walk up music for a batter coming to the
Yeah.
plate in baseball. Let's say, for instance, like you were getting prepared actually to go on stage to talk about ChiefSight somewhere at a big event, right? What would you want your walk up music to be?
It would either be Ride of the Valkyries, that opera chant, dun, 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 dun,
Right.
dun, 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 but that
Oh,
ends sadly for the Valkyries. Or it would be like a Led Zeppelin riff going
okay.
out there. That's what it would be.
I love it. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Um, how can folks reach out to you to learn more about ChiefSight? Perhaps maybe ask a question that I neglected to ask, or just reach out and say thank you for doing this.
No, absolutely. Anybody can email me at Gregg with two G's at ChiefSight, SIGHT.ai, or go to our website, www.ChiefSight,
Gregg with two G's, Carman. Thank you for coming on my podcast again. Also, this, of course, named The Goats of Growth this time. I appreciate it. Everybody, please go and connect with Gregg, follow him on LinkedIn, learn more about ChiefSight. And of course, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already to this episode, and tell your friends, colleagues, and whomever else can learn something new from a go-to-market leader within this space. Gregg, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Jay.
Bye, everybody.